Hi everyone, and welcome to Season 2 of the Becoming Women podcast with me, your host, Ella Sims. My mission with this podcast is to support teenage girls as they navigate the ups and downs of growing up. Each week, I will be speaking with a new female interviewee and asking them what they learnt during their teenage years. This season, I will be bringing you female specialists in well-being, mindfulness, authors, and young female activists. By speaking with both professionals and inspiring independent women, each individual episode provides you with confidence, tools to handle any challenges you may face, and the reassurance that you are not alone and those tricky teenage years will pass. My final guest for Season 2 is Nikki Giant. Nikki is the UK Girls' Rights Strategy and Development Manager at Plan International UK, with a remit to create UK-wide programmes to promote girls' rights and gender equality with and for adolescent girls. Previously, Nikki was the founder and director of Full Circle Education, a social enterprise supporting children and young people through a range of educational and extracurricular programmes to raise aspirations, attainment and school attendance. Nikki was also the founder of a sister organisation, Girls Circle, which aims to educate, elevate and empower girls and young women across the UK. Nikki is the author of 4 educational books produced by Jessica Kingsley Publishers, exploring themes related to girl bullying, young people's social and emotional development, and e-safety. Nikki was named as a rising star by Business Insider Wales and listed as one of the Wales Online's 35 under 35 businesswomen in 2015. Nikki is an ambassador for the organisation Girl Rising, which seeks to empower girls across the globe. In 2016, Nikki launched the first Manifesto for Girls' Rights in Wales, calling for better support for girls and more recognition of the challenges still facing girls and young women across the country. It was an absolute pleasure meeting Nikki a few weeks ago at Plan UK in London. Her knowledge and understanding of young girls and their needs is truly inspiring, and I feel very lucky to have had the opportunity to meet with her. I do hope you enjoy listening to her experience and thoughts in today's episode. Hi Nikki, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, and also, just for taking the time out of your busy day. We're here at Plan International UK in London, and it's a children's charity with its sole purpose to support children's rights and equality, and especially for young girls. What led you to begin or have your career here?
Well, I've been here about just over a year, and it's just a cause and an issue that's something is really important to me, I guess. So all of my work here at Plan focuses on girls' rights, and that's something that I've been interested in for many years, and it feels very important to me. I think there's lots of challenges that are facing girls in the UK and around the world, but often those challenges sort of go under the radar, they're not noticed, or often girls think that those issues and challenges are just a normal part of growing up. We don't recognise them as challenges. So it's something I'm very passionate about, and when this job came up, it was definitely something I wanted to go for.
And was there something before working here that made you feel drawn to working with and supporting young girls?
Yeah, so before joining Plan, I was based in Wales and running a non-profit organisation which focused on children and young people and their well-being, but particularly girls. And I started that organisation in 2012. And at the beginning it was just very generic, just going into schools, trying to help with issues like bullying or self-esteem or any of the kind of challenges that young people face. But quickly I sort of felt that there were specific needs that weren't being addressed for girls, and it was just something I felt I needed to do. And as soon as I started delivering work with girls, it just grew from there. And I guess really it's kind of my path in life, I think, to particularly work with adolescent girls. So yeah, it's something that's really close to my heart.
And you work with Girl Rising as an ambassador. What does that involve?
So Girl Rising is an amazing US organisation. They work all over the world, and they're very much focused on equality for girls as well. They tend to work in the global south, in places where it's really challenging to be a girl. and unfortunately girls still don't have access to education or healthcare or their real basic rights. So Girl Rising produce beautiful films to raise awareness of those issues. They produce curriculum to talk about those themes in schools all over the world. So it's a really, being an ambassador is just about kind of promoting what they do, sharing it and talking about those issues and kind of raising the profile of the organisation.
If someone's listening, or well, they will be listening, of course, but as a listener, if they want to help support Plan or Girl Rising, what sort of things can they do to get involved if they feel like they want to help support adolescent girls just like you do?
So there's lots of different ways of getting involved. I'd say an easy first step is just following organisations on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. That gives you a real sense of what they're doing, and then you can sort of get a sense of if this is an organisation that I want to do more with. So I think that's a really good start. And also just sharing things helps to spread a message. Maybe putting something in someone's timeline that they wouldn't necessarily see themselves, I think is really useful. At Plan International UK, we do lots of great campaigning work on issues affecting girls worldwide and in the UK. And we're always looking for people to support our campaigns, whether that's adding their name to a petition or doing something a bit more active. So if you go to Plan International UK's website at plan-uk.org, you can see all the information about our campaigns and support those there. And for those who are really passionate about this work, we have an amazing child sponsorship programme here. You can sponsor a child or specifically a girl, and that money is just so important to help shape and improve that girl's life and her wider community. So it's something that is the bedrock of the organisation, and really make sure that those who need it most get the support that they need.
And you've got a partnership with The Body Shop at the moment, is that right? And you've got a hashtag I'm dreaming of?
Yeah, that's right. So this is a brand new partnership. It's something I'm really excited about, because when I was running my little non-profit in Wales, it's something I dreamed of, being able to do a huge kind of campaign and programme with an organisation like The Body Shop. Yeah. So it's super exciting. So basically The Body Shop have donated £25,000 to help us run a programme in the UK called Girls Shout Out, and that is about getting girls into a safe online space to come together to talk about the issues that affect them, and help us to identify what are the challenges facing young women in the UK, and help us to develop better and better programmes so we can really make sure that what we do meets their needs. So Girls Shout Out is a partnership with The Body Shop, and if you go into your local Body Shop, you will see the beautiful branding and the graphics all over the store. And The Body Shop are also supporting two projects from Plan International UK in Indonesia and Brazil, and they're all about getting girls into employment, into leadership positions, to be empowered and to move into the spaces they want to move into, and to not be held back by their gender, as is the case, unfortunately, for a lot of girls. So they're really exciting projects, and that's why the hashtag is I'm dreaming of. So really encourage people to think about how can we help girls to dream big, and what are the barriers that exist for those girls, so how can we remove them? And like I said, your gender shouldn't be a barrier to anything that you want to do, but unfortunately for so many girls around the world that is still the case. So it's a great partnership. We're really excited to be working with The Body Shop.
I'll have to look out for it. It's a big international problem, isn't it? Girls' education, and then even if they have got that education, moving into the type of job that they want, or having the skills or the qualifications for a career that they may feel like isn't for them. What kind of things can they do to help get that support, or to keep that encouragement to actually go ahead and just do it?
I think that's a really good question, because there's two things really. I think there's a big lack of knowledge and a lack of education for all of us. When I was in school, nobody told me that I could be an aircraft engineer or a chemist or anything in between. Those jobs just did not come within my frame of reference. I had no understanding of what was available to me. So when I was making my choices, whether it's GCSE or going to college or even university, I really was so uninformed that I just plucked the first thing I could think of out of the air, really. And I think there is still, hugely sort of stereotypical ideas around what careers are for girls and what for boys, and that starts at a really early age. So you can see that even with sort of 4, 5 and 6 year olds, they're already, girls think, oh, it's girls' jobs to do the cooking and the cleaning and boys do other things, and those ideas persist. So I think there's something about kind of being educated and getting that information. So, even if I have a dream to be, I don't know, an artist or a hairdresser or a charity worker like me, it's really important that I know all the other options that are available to me so I can make an informed choice. And if it's something that brings me joy and I'm really happy about doing for the rest of my life or however many years, I think that's great. So there's that, and I think that's really important to find that information. Sometimes it's really hard to know where to look, but to ask people and to seek out different ideas to sort of give yourself the information that you need. So that's really important. But I think the second thing, and the thing that I think holds a lot of girls and women back, is confidence or lack thereof. And that's something that I definitely suffered with when I was younger. I definitely didn't have the confidence I felt I needed to move forward in life. And I was very shy, I was very timid. I could never have imagined myself doing 99% of the things that I do now on a daily basis. And that's tough. And I think often those thoughts and feelings that we have about ourselves can really hold us back, and sometimes we're not even aware of that. So having that awareness is really, really important, and not being too hard on ourselves. My favourite quote is, "When I knew better, I did better," and I think that's something that's really important to remember. You don't have to be perfect right now. You don't have to be aspiring to be leader of the world or prime minister. It's about what brings you joy and happiness, but doing the things that actually push your confidence step by step will help you to sort of shape the future that you want, I think.
Yeah, I think one of my favourite quotes is getting what is it? Completely gone. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes, that's nice.
And it's also the process of going through these things. So if you've got a set goal or something in mind, you end up feeling quite overwhelmed with the whole picture, and being that person, if you were to have seen, okay, Nikki, this is going to be you in 10-15 years time, you would have thought, oh my god, I can't do that.
Absolutely.
And you would have had negative thoughts, and you would have just felt like you can't do it. But it's the process of getting there and stripping everything back and just thinking, okay, what is it that I enjoy right now, or what am I interested in? How can I get involved in that with after school groups or things on at the weekend, or even going with a friend can help as well.
Definitely. I think, you're right. It's that one step that might lead to the path that you think you're going to go on, or it might lead to another path that you never had imagined. And I think that's really important, and it is about taking action, isn't it? And I'm a great believer in kind of visualizing and really kind of planning out mentally what I want to do and what I want to achieve. But if I just sit all day visualizing things and not taking any action, nothing really is going to change. Things don't land in your lap necessarily. But if you look at the kind of successful people out there, that's how they're portrayed. It comes across very much as people are just lucky, they're in the right place at the right time, or they've got some magic ingredient that means that they are super successful, a millionaire, leader of the world by the age of 20. Well, actually, that's not reality, and you don't see all the kind of stuff and the hard work behind that. So taking action, I think, is really important.
And taking risks, but not unhealthy ones, obviously. So or just chances.
Measured risks, or pushing your kind of comfort zone a little bit, but still being comfortable with who you are. So I think it's important to have that balance.
Can you remember what you wanted to be when you were a little girl?
Definitely. I always wanted to be a writer, and that was my dream, and I loved writing, and I still do. And it was something that I thought about when I was maybe primary school even, and then moving into high school, I never thought about it again, because that's not a career, you don't think that's a job that you could do. And it wasn't until much later, so when I was in my late 20s, I moved to America for a few years, and I met somebody who had written a book And that was the first time I'd ever actually met somebody who'd written and published a book. And it was kind of like a light bulb that, wow, this is actually doable. People do this, not just kind of, I don't know, floaty people who are super successful and don't really exist in reality. And that for me was a bit of a turning point. So I thought, well, if they can do it, maybe I can do it. And I ended up writing a book with a friend of mine, and we got it published. And that was a huge boost to my self-confidence as well. And I guess it took me back then to that feeling of being a child and having a dream and thinking, yeah, it is achievable if I want it hard enough and I want it for the right reasons. I can work towards that.
Is that Surviving Girlhood, the one that you published?
That's right. Yeah,
it's really good. I've actually got 2 of your books and your worksheets and things.
Oh, that's great.
They're so helpful, even as an adult.
You never know. When you write a book and you put it out there in the world, you think, is anybody reading this? So it's always lovely to hear that people are. Because that's the other thing as well. I think, you have an idea of what maybe like an author is or somebody who writes books, and then you try and become that yourself and you think, I don't really know what I'm doing here. You're kind of making it up as you go along, and you realise that's what everyone's doing all of the time. And it's just about taking that first step, writing some words and enjoying that process. I really enjoyed it, and seeing it in print was just the best feeling. So knowing that those books are out there in the world and somebody is reading them is amazing.
And what were your experiences like as a teenager and growing up?
It's an interesting question, because I was actually thinking about this last night, and I think I had a good childhood. I don't think I've got anything I could complain about, but actually I was quite a different character to the person that I am now. So I guess the core of me was still the same. I'm still the same person, but I was very shy, very lacking in confidence. I didn't know who I really was, or I didn't feel able to be that person. And yeah, I think I struggled a bit. I was very academic and I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I thought I've got to get loads of GCSEs, I've got to do really, really well, but I didn't know why. So I was putting all this pressure on myself without actually thinking about the end result. Well, what's the purpose of that? It was something you had to do. But for what? Because actually now nobody asks me what GCSEs I got or what A-levels or even what degree. It never ever comes up. And of course it's important to do well, and there's a positive feeling with striving for your best and achieving it. But it does worry me, because I hear a lot of particularly teenage girls right now who say that they've got no time for hobbies, they've got no time for any interests, they feel hugely pressured to do well and to succeed and to achieve. And a lot of the young women that I work with now are just incredible. They do so much, but they are doing things that I might have done when I was late 20s or in my 30s. They're pushing themselves to do in their late teens. And I think whilst that is amazing and those opportunities exist that probably didn't exist when I was young, I think there has to be a balance as well. You have to be able to sleep in, go out with your friends, enjoy life for what it is, and not get too caught up in the kind of the ideas about success that are definitely very pervasive in our society, and that can definitely lead to mental health problems, I think, and other issues as well, because when you're on that track of just must succeed, you can make yourself really ill, or lose sight of what it is to be you, I guess. So I definitely went through some of that, but luckily I feel like I've come through the other side for sure. So it's something that's important to me to help others with.
The pressure to keep climbing that ladder and to keep achieving or to be successful, whatever that means to each individual, it doesn't seem to be slowing down. I agree totally with what you're saying about I guess the older end of teenage girls now. I think social media is great and is a very powerful and positive tool if it's used in the right way. But because they've got that access, they're able to create something for themselves a lot more flexible than, say, you or I could have done. But then with that, they're just going to keep going and keep going and going, and like you say, not take that time to just go out, enjoy yourself, be lazy
Yeah,
because you
for
can,
sure.
and just take that time to search for who you are,
Yeah.
or not search for who you are because you already understand
Yeah.
that person deep down. And I don't know when that's going to start slowing down. It's quite scary.
It is frightening, I think, and it's sometimes it's difficult for me to understand because, kind of showing my age, but I grew up in a time before social media, so I didn't have any of those pressures, and actually I'm really grateful for that, because being the child and young person that I was, and so shy and quiet, I think I would have definitely turned to social media and lived my life through my phone, and it probably would have separated me even more from people in real life and the world around me, because I could have hidden behind it. So I think for me it would have been very detrimental. And I guess it's a worry in terms of the young people that I work with. It becomes quite toxic sometimes. Yes, there's huge benefits to social media and the internet and digital and all those things, but it's very addictive as well. And I think it's very easy to kind of curate a life or an image of a life. And I see people even my age and older doing that too. And you lose sight of the fact that actually somebody's online life is not necessarily their real life. And it can be quite easy to kind of aspire to something that doesn't actually exist, because somebody has uploaded photos and videos that portray themselves in a certain way, and then we start judging ourselves against that, and actually that might not be the reality of it. It's just one aspect of their life perhaps. So I think it's really challenging to be young now, as well as having all the benefits that maybe I didn't have when I was growing up.
I've thought about whether to, I guess from my own point of view, with posting things on social media, because I use it to spread the word with what I'm doing, and there's a pressure to put out useful or content that's got a purpose, and sometimes you just don't have it. And then you think about, well, why don't I just do something with what I'm doing now? But it would probably appear boring, but it may be refreshing in a way if we all started to just show something that was very simple.
For sure.
Whether that's just on the commute or having a coffee, or you've just had an accident and it was really embarrassing and you managed to take a photo of it somehow, or whatever.
Yeah, I think there's something really nice about being real, and also having a digital detox every now and then. I'm not very good at that myself, because my whole world is on my phone, and the lines between home life or personal life and work as well become quite blurred as you get older as well, because everything's on your phone. And I think it's really important actually to kind of separate and to either just post something silly or just post nothing at all. I often think, well, who am I talking to? This kind of faceless world of Twitter that I don't actually know. Maybe I don't need to, but it's tricky.
Yeah, well, a lot of them will be supporters and things
That's
like
true.
that.
Yeah.
What's if a girl is struggling with social media at the moment? With your book Surviving Girlhood, you have some tools in that. What sort of things could they take as a proactive action to resolve something?
I think that's a good question, and I know it's not a simple problem. So often, when somebody may be being bullied online or is having some problems, what teachers or parents or those who care say is, well, just take yourself offline, block that person. And yes, those are two good things to do, but I know it's not as simple as that, because our lives are digital, and it's not about having an online life and a real life. Actually, life is life these days, and the two are mixed. I think there's something about taking back control, isn't there? And sometimes it feels like it's controlling us. So having that awareness first and foremost of, actually, this is not making me feel good, is really important. So if you can recognise that, whether it's that person that's saying something not very nice, or you feel that you're getting sucked into social media and you don't feel like it's giving you something positive back, or anything in between, having that awareness first and foremost, I think, is really good. And then talking to somebody about it, ideally in real life, hey, this has happened, or I feel like this and I'm not sure what to do about it, because it's a bit of an old-fashioned idea, but a problem shared is a problem halved often. And people have perspectives that we can't see. Sometimes we can't see the wood for the trees, and other people might be able to really help with that. I think if it's something really serious, you have to tell somebody, you have to make sure you block that person. It is important to get help. If you need to report it to the social media company or even report it to the police, it's hard for these companies and for the police or whoever else to take action on these issues if they don't get a sense of what's going on. So even if, even just reporting, I think that really helps to make sure that we're gaining a picture of what is happening. And particularly with some of the challenges girls tend to face, things like online harassment, sexual harassment, being pushed out of digital spaces, those things are so underreported that we never get a sense of what's going on. And yet we know that these are big problems, but actually the data about them doesn't exist. So all of those things are really important. But maybe as well it's about, giving yourself some time away from those spaces if you can. And I know it's difficult because it feels like if you're not digitally connected, then you're missing out on something. But maybe talk to your friends about that. You could say that I'm having some trouble with X, Y, or Z. I need to step away from that platform. Can you please contact me in another way? So your friends are aware that you're not going to miss out. You're not kind of on the outside, but you're getting the space that you need. I think it is really complex, and there's lots of organisations that can help with this as well. But your well-being and your mental health has to come first. And if your digital life or social media or the way that people are behaving on social media is affecting that, then action needs to be taken.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't have someone who's coming to you with a problem that they want help or support with, what can, say, we as the older generation, and we want to help nurture and take care of the next generation of young women, what can we do to help support them?
It's a good question. I think we've got to be conscious that we are role models as well, even if we don't think of ourselves in that way. Everybody around us is a role model in some way. We're all modelling something, whether we're aware of it or not. So I think being conscious of that is really important. I've got a 9-year-old niece, and she is, an amazing character, and really helps me to be conscious of what I'm saying and doing. And I think that's really key. So, I don't want her, for example, to have body image anxieties. Right now she doesn't. She's very happy in her body. And I worry that will change, because as you become a teenager, you become more body conscious. And with the world that we live in, it's very toxic often in terms of the kind of images that we see. But if I'm around her and I'm talking about my body in a negative way, that becomes the norm for her. So I have to kind of be really conscious of what I'm saying and doing and how I portray myself, so that I'm setting a new way of being. And that doesn't mean to say that I'm always kind of going around saying, I love my body and aren't I beautiful? But I can also not say, oh gosh, I look so fat today, or oh, I'm so this, that, or the other, or I hate the way my hair looks, or whatever it might be. So just kind of being conscious of that, I think, is really important. One of the other things I've been thinking about a lot recently is about accepting compliments. And I think as women, we're really, really bad at that. And somebody said to me earlier, oh, I like your dress, is that new? And I was like, oh, got it in a charity shop. Straight away I'm kind of like
already downplaying
it. Yeah, which is really weird. So rather than just saying thank you, or I appreciate that, or whatever I could say, I'm deflecting it, as you say. So there's something about kind of setting the tone with those things and saying, I appreciate what you've said, or thank you, or complimenting others and giving those compliments freely. And that can really start to shift how we see ourselves and how others see us as well. So there's small things, but actually they can have a really big impact.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. I've got a 11-year-old niece, and there is a huge change. You'll probably see it with your own, going from 9 to 11. She already thinks that she's a teenager, and I don't remember being like that at 10 or 11. No. And she's
I've seen her grow up from about, she must have been about 4 or 5, I think. And she's changed. She's gone from, naturally as a girl, she'll come up to you and stroke your hair and be like, oh, I really like your hair. And now she just loves history. So my main goal at the moment is to keep that interest there. That's and nice. Encourage it. And I think that's important to, I think in those moments when she used to say, she liked my hair, I would obviously say, okay, thank you, but move it on to something that wasn't necessarily about your looks. Or I don't think I ever complimented on her dress. I was really conscious of that, so that she doesn't get attached to being aware of how she looks at quite a young age. Obviously that would happen naturally over time, but I used to try and ask her about school and books or things that she did at the weekend. So it's really nice to know at the moment that she loves history. That's and lovely. To encourage that.
It is hard, isn't it? Because I find, even working within girls' rights and gender equality and being really aware of stereotypes, your natural inclination when you see a little baby girl is, oh, how beautiful. And we don't use the same language for boys. No. It is very much more image focused. And I might see my niece and say, oh, how beautiful that outfit is, as you say. And actually that's just reinforcing that idea that, we are so closely linked to image, and image is the most important thing, which is still completely pervasive in our society. And it just isn't the same for boys and men, although I do think it is increasing. So, a lot of the young men that I work with are now much more image conscious than boys ever were when I was in school. And I think that's worrying as well. So as much as we don't want to encourage it for girls, I think we want to kind of nip that in the bud with boys as well, because it's damaging all around.
Absolutely. It's finding that balance, isn't it? There is a lot of focus on girls and equal rights, but we should be thinking about the opposite sex and where they may face challenges too, and what we can do to support them.
Yeah.
What things at Plan do you do to help that?
So we work predominantly with girls in the UK. So we're an international charity. So most of our work happens overseas, and that is work with girls and boys. But in the UK we focus specifically on girls, because we recognise that there are a lot of amazing charities out there who are doing work in the UK with young people more generally. So we really need to have that kind of focus. But we do engage boys through our programmes as well. So we focus on how can we engage boys on girls' rights issues, because we recognise that issues such as gender-based violence, for example, that's not an issue that girls and women can address alone.
No.
There's a huge education piece there, there's support that's needed for boys and young men, so we don't end up perpetuating kind of stereotypes and perceptions of gender that then become entrenched and become things like gender-based violence. So our programmes are really diverse, and some of our programmes are just for girls. So Girls Shout Out, for example, that I mentioned earlier, that's in partnership with The Body Shop. That is a safe online space for girls and those who identify as girls to be. Whereas some of our other programmes, for example, we've got a programme in Wales called Champions of Wales, and that's about gender equality and girls' rights with girls and boys, and how can we take young people on that journey together, so boys can become advocates as much as girls. It is challenging. It's not a simple problem to solve, and it's something that is very entrenched. There's not one country in the world that is gender equal. We're quite far from it, really, and even in the UK, as one of the richest countries in the world, there are still so many challenges. We don't have equal pay. Violence against women and girls is still very, very high, but there is a perception that we have equality, which in some ways is more damaging than it is positive, because it seems like we've solved all of these things, we have legislation, but we don't in reality on the ground see the effects of that. So I think working with boys is really, really key, and we're very conscious as well that for younger generations, gender is becoming less and less of a way to identify themselves than it was for my generation. So you were very much a girl or a boy in my generation, and you might be a tomboy But that was, even that in itself is really, really problematic. But now a lot of the young people that I work with, they don't want to identify with one gender. They want to be non-binary or gender fluid. And I think that's really interesting. We're moving away from these kind of very formal and restrictive ideas about what it means to be human. And the rest of the world needs to catch up with that, really.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time.
Yeah, absolutely. There are 2 questions that I ask all guests at the end of the chats. And the first one is, if you could give yourself advice or go back and give advice to your younger self, what would that be?
I think it would be stop thinking about what other people are thinking about you, because you waste so much time and energy trying to work out how other people see you, being very self-conscious. Well, I certainly did. And actually 99% of the time people are not thinking about you anyway, and the other 1% of the time, what does it matter? It's so liberating to stop thinking about how others perceive you and to just focus on how you want to perceive yourself. So that would be my advice. It's not easily done, but it can become a really healthy, positive habit.
Yeah, the over-analysing of whether you fit into a peer group or something that you may have said, or even holding back and not saying anything because you don't want to appear one way or the other.
Yeah, so that constant kind of self-regulation, I suppose, and not letting yourself just be. It's really exhausting. And all that mental energy about worrying, why did I say that? Why did I do that? What do I look like? Is my hair a mess? All these things, what is the point? It just takes up so much energy that actually is wasteful, and it's quite damaging, yeah. So if I could give that gift to everybody, including my younger self, I definitely would.
Well, speaking of gifts, the last question is, if you could give a gift to all young girls over the world, anything, what would it be?
So I guess to go along with that, then it would have to be the gift of self-belief, to know that you are good enough as you are. You don't need to be anything else. You don't need to change. You are perfect. And if every girl, every young person even believed in themselves, oh my gosh, this world would be so different. We'd all stop trying to strive to be something else and focusing on other people's perceptions and really just being comfortable with ourselves. I think a lot of the problems of the world would disappear. And that sense of self-belief then just helps you to move in any direction you want to, whether you want to do better at sports or become a writer or take that volunteering job. Those things are what make life really enjoyable. And if you have that confidence, that self-belief to be able to take those steps, as we were saying earlier, that action, then the next door opens and the next door and the next door, and suddenly life is transformed.
Yeah.
But it all comes with that first step, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it's becoming more empowered, and if you're empowered, then you're able to empower other people and make some very amazing changes.
For sure, because as you say, we're all role models, we're all kind of modelling for everybody else. So by you taking that step, then it gives permission to other people to do the same, and then you've created a chain reaction.
Brilliant. Thank you, Nikki, so much for today.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to Becoming Women with me, Ella Sims. I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please follow me on Twitter or Instagram, or visit www.becomingwomen.com. I'd love it if you could please share this podcast with anyone you know who would enjoy listening to it. And if you are a young girl, I'd love to hear your feedback on today's episode. So feel free to send me a DM. See you next week.